This is a podcast by The Straits Times.
Welcome to Health Check, a podcast series by The Straits Times where we tackle health tips and the impact of national policies with expert guests. I'm Joyce Teo and my co-host is Ernest Lewis. Today we have two experts from the Yong Lu Ling School of Medicine at NUS, and they're going to tell us more about a study they did that showed that eating mushrooms may help slow mental decline. They are Assistant Professor Feng Lei from the Department of Psychological Medicine and Dr. Erwin Chia, a Senior Research Fellow from the Biochemistry Department. Hi, Prof. Feng, and hi, Dr. Chia.
Hi.
So your 6-year study, right, of 663 Chinese Singaporeans over the age of 60 found that those who consume more than 2 portions of mushrooms a week may have a 50% reduced risk of having mild cognitive impairment. So tell us, what's 2 portions of mushrooms?
It's about half a plate.
I see. Okay, that's good. So can you tell us what this all means then? Should we all go out and eat a lot of mushrooms to avoid having memory loss?
In our study, what we found is that mushroom consumption is associated with reduce the risk of mild cognitive impairment. So which a stage between normal aging and more severe cognitive decline in dementia. So the study is very important because we are facing a potential dementia tsunami in Singapore. So the population is aging very fast, and age itself is the single most important risk factor for dementia. We know from the local data, so among those who are aged 85 and above, the prevalence of dementia based on the Americans' criteria is about 24.9. So about 1 in 4 will get dementia when you reach 85 and above. And in Singapore, this is very important because now for Singaporean men, when you reach 65, you will live another 19.1 years. And then for females, when you reach 65, you will live another 22.5 years. So we are talking about there are more dementia in Singapore and other countries, and we do not have a cure for dementia. So finding modifiable risk factor is very important, and the mushroom is one of the factors.
So that's important to take note of. Singapore has an aging society. As you said, there is a possibility of a dementia tsunami. What's so special about mushrooms?
I think Dr. Erwin Chia will answer.
So mushrooms actually contain very high levels of a compound called ergothioneine. So earlier work we did with our Professor Barry Halliwell, we found that this ergothioneine is able to scavenge free radicals. So free radicals and oxidative stress and inflammation are all very important factors in progression of diseases such as Alzheimer's disease.
Those are bad things for our bodies,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So on top of this, there's animal studies as well that show that this compound ergothioneine can actually help reduce the levels of oxidative damage and inflammation in these animal models as well.
Okay, so that's ergothioneine.
Ergothioneine, that's right, yes.
Can this compound help prevent Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Actually, a study that we did together with Prof. Feng Lei, we showed that subjects with the mild cognitive impairment actually had significantly lower blood levels of this compound ergothioneine. So we suggested that this could be a risk factor for developing cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease as well.
Okay, so beans and liver contain low levels of this ergothioneine.
Yes.
But mushrooms are different.
That's right. So mushrooms can actually synthesize this compound. So they actually contain very high levels of ergothioneine.
Okay. You mentioned Alzheimer's, it helps to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. What about Parkinson's disease?
So Parkinson's is quite interesting. So a Japanese group first identified that Parkinson's patients also had significantly lower blood levels of ergothioneine relative to age-matched controls. We investigated this in a Singaporean context, and we found that the same thing, that Parkinson's disease patients actually had the lower blood levels. So we were quite interested. We collaborated with Prof. Lim Ka Leong from National Neuroscience Institute, and they're working on fruit fly models of Parkinson's disease. So far, we've got some very interesting results, and we're moving on to animal models with the potential of going into clinical trials in future.
All right.
That's interesting.
Now, if you like what you're hearing so far, do subscribe to our series Health Check on Apple's iTunes or Google Podcasts, or even on Spotify, and like us and give us a rating. Now, back to our conversation with Assistant Professor Feng Lei from the Department of Psychological Medicine and Dr. Erwin Chia, a Senior Research Fellow from the Biochemistry Department at NUS. So, gentlemen, your study said that 6 types of mushrooms are commonly eaten in Singapore. Let me go through them. Golden mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, white button mushrooms, dried mushrooms and canned mushrooms, which used to be my favorite when I was a boy. Is there a difference between the superiority of the various types of mushrooms?
Yeah, so we measured actually quite a wide range of different mushrooms, and we found that the different mushrooms actually contain different levels of ergothioneine. But that's not to say that one is better than the other. I mean, they all contain very high levels compared to other foods. What's important is actually not to focus on the type of mushroom, but also just eating mushrooms in general. And also it's important to remember to keep a balanced diet and a lifestyle, active lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
But
So I also want to add that dementia and cognitive decline is not caused by one or two or three factors.
Yeah.
So there are many other factors across the lifespan. So we
Right.
need to consider many other factors when we talk about promote brain health or prevent dementia. For example, physically active, so maintain mentally and socially active. And even for diet, there are many other factors. For example, vegetables and fruits, try to control your alcohol intake, try to avoid sugary drink, try to drink green tea maybe. So it's not only one factor, although our research suggests ergothioneine is one potential compound for maybe as a preventive for dementia, and eating mushroom can contribute to better brain health. I think the take-home message is we need to take care of the overall dietary quality, also take care of the lifestyles.
Right. Since, mushrooms can help, and what if I don't like to eat vegetables, right? I mean, I only want to eat mushrooms to help myself. So which type of mushroom would be the best then?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, there are some mushrooms with higher levels. It's difficult to say whether one mushroom is better than the other. They all have, other than ergothioneine, they contain a range of other different compounds as well. So it's difficult to sort of say one is better than the other because we can't assess all the different things. But definitely, as I mentioned, eating mushrooms will actually allow you to get ergothioneine, which is beneficial in general.
So, I mean, if it helps, right, like half a plate helps, like, can we eat more than that if we want to get more benefits from it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a magic number, right? So half plate or 300 gram, I don't think so. So actually, what we found in this study is there's a dose-dependent relationship between mushroom consumption and cognitive benefit. So compared with those never ate mushroom, so the level is much lower than half a plate. It's still beneficial. So I think we are eating not only for health, right? You also need to enjoy food. So if you really don't like mushroom, I don't think it's a good idea to force yourself to eat a lot of mushroom.
So you can eat something else then.
But if you like it, I think you can try to include mushroom in your diet. So maybe when you go out, eating out, you can try to order dish with mushroom. When you go to market, you can try to buy some mushrooms. Remember that. So, but I don't think we need to be obsessed with a certain amount. That's my advice.
So are there like supplements we can take if we don't want to eat the real mushrooms then? Or is it better to take a supplement?
I think there are some at the moment. There might be some mushroom extracts and things like that are available in the market. It's a very interesting question because potentially we may be looking at this in the future. But currently we're doing clinical studies into ergothioneine. So we want to investigate whether or not this compound actually has any potential before we move into that area.
Okay.
So to end on that, the study finding from a so-called observational study. So we do need more evidence from randomized control trial to show the efficacy of ergothioneine or other compound from mushroom. So I think it's still early stage.
Early stages. But it's interesting, it's beneficial and it's good for overall knowledge actually. Joyce, you had a mushroom that we were talking about, which is different from the other mushrooms.
The study mentioned 6 types of mushrooms, right? So what about the other types of mushrooms, like portobello mushrooms?
All mushrooms actually synthesize ergothioneine. As I mentioned, we measured much wider range of mushrooms. So I think almost all mushrooms actually synthesize the compound. So you'll find, generally speaking, a lot higher levels of ergothioneine in mushrooms than all other foods.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap for Health Check. Thank you, Prof. Feng and Dr. Chia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we hope you like these latest healthy living tips. Do subscribe to Health Check on Apple's iTunes or on Google Podcast or even on Spotify, and like us and give us a rating.
That was an SPH podcast. Find us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and streaming on Google Home. Do send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. You can also check out more podcasts on various topics at straitstimes.com and bt.sg.